If this is my favorite week, this is my favorite topic of the week. Media influence on body dissatisfaction and our feelings about ourselves. This is actually what I do in my lab. I study body image and disordered eating. And one of the big factors that we're finding that influences how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about our bodies, is what we see in the media. I love this quote because it's true, and B, I think it really epitomizes the problem. In the factory, we make cosmetics. In the drugstore, we sell hope. It used to be, and I think when Charles Revson founded Revlon, we were talking about women. But if you've walked down any grocery store or drugstore aisle designed for personal care products these days, you're going to find a lot of products designed for men in addition to kind of the bevy of aisles of products designed for women. So it's no longer just about targeting women. So last time we were talking about the meaning of size, and we got into what the US considers the ideal man and the ideal woman. And so I want to dive a little further into that today. Interesting side note, in your supplemental folder for the week, you're going to find two articles. One is on men around the world, and the other is women around the world. So they had people who design magazine covers for a living and Photoshop and take the models' pictures and all of that. Take one person, and you can see there's a man and there's a woman in each of these different articles. And you can see how the ideal is in different countries. So in the US, we're taught that thin is good. And we're actually taught this really early on in life. By ages 3 to 5, most children already have this belief that thin is good and fat is bad. We indoctrinate our children in the US from a very, very young age. But if you look at the articles in the supplemental folder, you will see that not every country believes that that's true. So it's very much a cultural phenomenon in terms of what the ideal body is. I'm focusing on the US because that's where we are, but if you're interested in what that might look like in different countries, take a peek at that supplemental folder. So in the US, we are taught, again, very, very young ages, 3 to 5, that thin is good because it means you have control, you have willpower, you have power over yourself, over your inner state, over your ability to choose what to eat, what to wear, who to be with. Thin is just kind of held up by our media as this image of self-control. And it's really unfortunate because, as we've talked about before, depending on your genetics, your bone build, the ideal image presented for men and women in the US is really unrealistic for most people. So we're told from a very early age that if you are thin, and in this case in the US right now, it's more like lean and toned, you're hardworking, you're ambitious, you have self-control, you're pure. If you're female, it's really associated with purity, virginity, freedom from class, freedom from gender restraints. Some women are making the decision not to have children because they don't want to, quote unquote, lose their body. And again, these are kind of societal messages that we're getting, is that thin at all cost, success, motivation, willpower. And of course, on the flip side, again, young children are told that fat or obesity is bad because it means you lack that self-control, you lack self-discipline, you're lazy, unpopular, you're less attractive, less intelligent, you're not hardworking, you're not successful, you're not athletic. Some studies have been done in elementary age children. So again, we learn this by 3 to 5. So you take a bunch of first graders, and they did this interesting study where they had 2 substitute teachers, and it was a female teacher. And they got 1 sub on one day and 1 sub on the other day. And this was actually the same woman. And so on the first day, the substitute teacher she was made up, she was dressed in clothes that made her look more attractive, made her look thinner, did the hair and the makeup and all the stuff. The second day, same woman, but they had her put on padded clothing. They had her wear kind of a fat suit, is what I think is what they're called. It's an unfortunate name, but that's what they're called. If you've seen the movie, what's it called? Anyway, there have been movies that kind of Gwyneth Paltrow was in a movie a while back, something about how where she wore a fat suit and then she was herself, and she was seeing how she was treated if she appeared differently. So same thing, right? So we've got first graders, same woman. One day she appears as the quote-unquote ideal image in the US, and the other she appears as someone who is overweight. And these young children, said that they preferred the thin teacher because they thought that she was more intelligent and she was nicer, and I mean, all of these things that are ingrained in us from a very, very young age. So who tells us this? It's everywhere. You can't go to the grocery store, drugstore, Walmart, without being surrounded by images of the quote-unquote, ideal image on magazine covers. But it's also in TV. It's social media. We see it everywhere on social media. More on that to come in our next lecture. And video games, right? It's like kids, again, from a very young age, were portraying these idealistic images for men and women. Even if they're cartoonish, although video games are getting pretty darn realistic. And no wonder we grow up feeling inadequate and less than because we don't feel like we're good enough, or we don't meet the ideal standard. Here's the problem. Well, there's a number of problems, but here's one problem. So advertising doesn't claim to picture reality as it is, but reality as it should be. Life and lives worth imitating. I love this quote because, again, it's very true. And it's not just advertising. So we're seeing this phenomenon on social media where individuals are, it's social comparison. We'll talk about that more in the next lecture, where we're comparing ourselves to what we think other people are doing. Could be our friends, family, celebrities, people we knew in high school and haven't seen for a long time, because we're seeing their highlight reel of their lives on social media. But it's no more realistic than what's actually happening in their day-to-day lives, because we don't post the crappy stuff, right? We only post the things that we're proud of, our cool adventures we went on. And so we're seeing this actually over all age groups, that the more time we spend on social media, the more social comparison we engage in, and the worse we feel about ourselves. So again, I'm sure you're familiar with Photoshop. I don't need to tell you that what you see on magazine covers isn't real. To some extent, TV images, social media images, it's so easy to use filters that even what you see on social media likely has been altered. So it's very, because I study this, I can tell you what most students will tell me. They'll take 100 to 200 pictures of whatever they're trying to take. They pick the one they like most, and then they use the filters. And so again, what you're seeing is not necessarily real. It's a version of reality, but it's a heavily photoshopped, filtered version of reality. And that's what you're comparing yourself to. So keep that in mind. So here's the thing that is really heartbreaking to me, is just how easily and quickly we can feel bad about ourselves after being exposed to these quote-unquote realistic, idealistic images. So in a large city, people see up to 5,000 ads a day. And what we know about advertising is that you don't even have to be really paying attention. These are billboards that you're driving by as you're driving to work or school. These are the ads that pop up on social media, which are abundant. These are all the ways that you're exposed to advertising, even on TV, right? A lot of TV these days, shows on Netflix, Amazon, network television, advertisers actually pay a lot of money to do product placement. And so you may notice there's a lot of Mercedes being driven in your favorite show, or there's a certain clothing brand that you see people wear all the time. Those are product placements, and they're trying to get you to buy their product. And they're trying to be sneaky about it so that you don't know it's actually an ad, but actually it is an ad, right? They're just hoping that you'll buy into the character that you like on your TV show and you'll want to be like them, dress like them, drive the same car as them, et cetera, et cetera. So in Boise, Idaho, where we are, if you're in Boise, probably not 5,000 ads a day. We're not that big of a city. We're not New York City or Manhattan or LA. So maybe 2,000 to 3,000 ads a day. Although depending on how much time you spend on social media, it still could add up. So these images that we see set really unrealistic goals. We compare ourselves. We strive to achieve that same level of quote unquote perfection. Could be thinness, could be muscularity, could be whatever it is that you're striving to look like, athleticism. And then we feel bad about ourselves, about our appearance, about our skill set, about whatever it is we're comparing ourselves on. And if we're talking about body image, then it can cause engagement in unhealthy eating behaviors or exercise behaviors, or other kind of just negative self-talk, right? There's a lot of negative repercussions of social comparison. So here's how it works. It only takes 30 minutes total, not in one sitting. So if you're scrolling for, on Instagram for 10 minutes and then later on in the day you get on Twitter and then later in the day you watch your favorite show on Netflix, like all of that adds up. So this is what we know about how it works. So exposure to the idealistic images is what kind of starts the ball rolling. But then you have to internalize that and you have to feel like, I need to look like that. You may or may not, right? So these aren't, just because you've been exposed doesn't mean you're going to end up taking an unhealthy road. So it kind of goes through this process. So media exposure could be, again, TV, video games, magazines, social media, anywhere that you're getting media exposure, to real people, celebrities, anything that's been altered, whether you know it or not. You internalize that, you think you should look like that. Then you feel pressured to actually achieve that and comparing yourselves to, again, friends, family, celebrities, whoever it may be, characters on video games, TV shows. And then you go back to that same media source as a source of information for how to get that look, whether it's through the product placements that are in TV shows, magazine ads, social media ads. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in the next lecture. The filter bubbles are so good these days. The algorithms of what you see are really, really targeted to make you feel bad about something that you feel bad about. And they give you the solution in the ads. I mean, it's really kind of beautiful. Very, very sneaky way of doing it because it works, right? So the ads you see on social media are specifically targeted to you based on your likes, comments, choices. It's tied in with all of the media sources that you frequently use.